South China Morning Post, 26 August 2022, PLA warns against other countries helping India to stand against Chinese aggression. China wants to keep India occupied in the north. At the same time, she built her naval forces to be stationed at Hambantota, Sri Lanka, and Gwadar in Pakistan as part of her desperate bid to get out of the South China Sea and Malacca Strait dilemma. China currently illegally occupies Tibet and Xinjiang. The People's Liberation Army, PLA, has warned against third-party involvement in the China-India border dispute as the United States and India hold joint military drills near the contested border. China firmly opposes any third party helping India in the China-India border issue, said Senior Colonel Tan Kefei, a spokesman for China's Ministry of National Defense, during a regular press conference in Beijing on Thursday. China's attitude is that it is all right for us to bully you, but you cannot stand up for yourself or ask others to help you against Chinese bullying. The remarks came as US and Indian special forces held joint drills in India's northern state of Himachal Pradesh, which started on August 8. The two parties will have another joint exercise from October 18 to 31 in Ali in the Indian state of Uttarakhand, less than 100 kilometers, 62 miles, from the occupied Tibet border and the disputed China-India border. Tensions between Beijing and Washington are simmering over Taiwan, with the PLA staging unprecedented military drills around the island in retaliation for U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit earlier this month. Soon after Pelosi's trip, Beijing suspended a series of defense dialogues with the United States. Tan said the China-India border issue was a matter between the two countries. Both sides have maintained effective communications at all levels and agreed to handle the situation through bilateral dialogues properly. Relations between the two countries have worsened over the border dispute, especially after violent clashes between Indian and Chinese troops in the Galway Valley in June 2020. The two sides have held 16 commander-level talks to resolve the standoff. The talks have yielded little signs of progress in recent months. The two militaries concluded their latest round of meetings in July, agreeing to stabilize border regions and keep bilateral ties on track for improvement, according to a readout from the Chinese side, as China wants to drag on the issue to keep India occupied in the north. The logistics of fighting in the mountain are terrible for China. A determined fight from India will stall and destroy any attack from the north. Tan said in light of agreements signed by China and India in 1993 and 1996, neither side is allowed to conduct military exercises near the line of actual control, the de facto border between India and western China's Tibet-occupied region. Tan called on India to uphold its commitment to resolving border issues, typically Chinese lies. The ongoing US-India joint exercise, named Vajra Prahar 2022, is the 13th edition of the drill and will cover collaborative mission planning, operational tactics and improving coordination between the special forces of the two countries, The Hindu reported, citing an Indian Army statement. The October Yuddhabhyas exercise will focus on high-altitude warfare training. The annual movement started in 2002 as the most extensive joint military training between the countries. The location of the exercise alternates between India and the United States. Lin Minwang, a professor of South Asian Studies at Fudan University in Shanghai, said Beijing had been closely watching the US-India drills near the disputed border, and the timing of Tan's comment showed Beijing feels the drills completely target China after observing the training methods and weapons used. Being provided to defend India from Chinese evil designs. China is wary of the US joining military exercises close to the contested border, especially since India's recent response to Taiwan issues has already made Beijing unhappy as democracies worldwide are waking up to the China threat. In its first reaction to the Pelosi visit, the Indian Ministry of External Affairs said on August 12 that India was concerned over developments in the Taiwan Strait, and called for the exercise of restraint and avoiding unilateral action to change the status quo in the region. Lin said that India's calls for PLA restraint showed the country was coordinating with the United States on Taiwan, which sent a bad signal to Beijing, as Beijing is engaged in all-out war with the Indian subcontinent and India in particular. Lin said the US intended to besiege China in two directions, from the east in its alliance with Taipei and together with India from the southwestern border. He said the drills could create a bad atmosphere for, or even delay, the next round of border talks between China and India. China wants to delay keeping India engaged in the north while she comes from the south. All Chinese goods need a 30% tax and India led the Chinese occupation tax. All Chinese ships traveling in the Indian Ocean must pay a 30% tax for Chinese aggression.